You've probably felt it too. You walk into a room with someone, and your dog suddenly goes quiet or starts growling. Your cat disappears under the bed. Your horse refuses to take the feed from that person's hand. You say, it's just fear. But science is now asking a much bigger question. Do animals actually recognize a bad person? Not just this person is scary, but this person is untrustworthy, deceptive, dangerous. And if they can, how? Today, we're going from famous experiments to real-life stories, and we'll see exactly what animals can and cannot detect about us. First, let's get one thing clear. When scientists say bad person, they don't mean evil villain from movies. They mean someone who is rude, someone who breaks trust, someone who harms others, someone whose intentions are not good. Animals don't know our laws. They don't know our words, but they do know behavior. So the real question becomes, can animals detect bad behavior and connect it to a specific human? And the answer is more shocking than you think. Let's start with dogs. In a famous experiment from Kyoto University, researchers set up a simple scene. An owner tries to open a container. One person helps them, another person refuses, and even knocks it away. Simple, right? Then, the owner offered food to both people. The dog watched. And then, the dog made a choice. Most dogs refused to take food from the person who was rude. They didn't just not like them. They rejected them. This wasn't fear. This was judgment. The dogs had seen how that person behaved towards someone else, and they decided, this person is not safe. This person is not trustworthy. In another study, researchers tested whether dogs could spot an unreliable informant. A person pointed to a container and said, food is there, but there was no food. They did this multiple times. Later, when the same person pointed somewhere else, most dogs ignored them. They didn't just forget. They remembered, this person lied to me. I can't trust them. So yes, dogs can recognize patterns of behavior and connect them to a specific human. They don't just react to anger. They react to intent. And here's the human part. If your dog suddenly acts strange around someone you thought was fine, maybe they're not being dramatic. Maybe they're seeing something you haven't yet. Now, horses. Horses are not as social with humans as dogs, but they're extremely sensitive to human emotions and behavior. In research from the University of Sussex, scientists studied how horses reacted to different human facial expressions. They found something incredible. When a human showed a happy face, horses approached calmly. When the same human showed an angry face, horses backed away, even if nothing dangerous happened. But what's more powerful is memory. There are documented cases where a horse was treated badly by someone pushed, hit, or shouted at, and then, months later, when that same person came near, the horse stopped eating, turned its body away, tried to escape. Even without any new threat, the horse remembered that person. And not just the action, the person. This means horses don't just feel fear in the moment. They build a kind of profile of humans. This person is safe. This person is dangerous. And they keep that memory for a long time. Now, let's talk about birds, especially crows and jackdaws. These birds are brutally intelligent. And they don't just learn from their own experiences. They learn from each other. In a study from the University of Exeter, wild jackdaws watched other birds interact with humans. Some humans were safe, others were threatening. The jackdaws that had never been harmed by those humans still avoided the threatening humans, stayed far away. Watched them carefully. They didn't need to be hurt. They just saw what happened to others and learned. In another famous experiment with American crows, researchers wore different masks while disturbing the birds. Later, even when the researchers were gone, the crows scolded the dangerous mask, ignored the safe mask, and they remembered that dangerous mask for years. So birds don't just recognize faces. They recognize patterns of behavior and attach them to specific humans, or at least specific versions of humans. And if a human is consistently bad, cruel, or dangerous, the birds will remember that human. Now, let's bring this back to us. Because this isn't just about animals, this is about how we behave. If your dog growls at someone who talks too loudly, if your cat hides when someone enters the room, if your horse refuses to eat from a certain person's hand, you might be tempted to say, they're just sensitive. They don't like strangers. They're being dramatic. But what if they're not? What if they're seeing something you're not? What if they're noticing the tension in your voice, the way someone's body moves, the subtle signs of anger or dishonesty, the energy that doesn't match the words? Animals don't have our stories. They don't have our excuses. They only have what they see and what they feel. And sometimes that's more honest than what we say. But let's be clear, animals are not magic. They can't read your mind. They can't know your entire life story. They can't tell if someone is a bad person in the moral sense. They respond to body language, tone of voice, past behavior, patterns they've seen. If someone is kind today but bad tomorrow, an animal might not immediately know. They need time. They need repetition. And sometimes, animals get it wrong. A dog might fear someone who is actually safe. A horse might avoid someone who is just loud, not dangerous. So, we must not overreact. We must not say, my dog hates them, so they must be evil. But we should pay attention, because animals often give us the earliest warning. So, do animals recognize a bad person? Not in the way we understand bad. But yes, they can recognize bad behavior. They can remember who was cruel. They can warn us quietly before we even see it ourselves. Maybe that's why, for thousands of years, humans have trusted animals. Not because they're perfect, but because they're honest. If your animal suddenly acts strange around someone, don't just ignore it. Listen. They might be telling you something important.